Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Friday edition, Lance.
I'm excited, Bob. It's Fraud Friday, and Katie brings the news.
The full employment act for Katie. Yes, we're doing that. Let's see. Thank you all for joining us. They're certificates. Please ask your questions. We will send them to Lance and I, and we will get answers to you. We have a ton of information. Let's get into it. Have you had borrowers close their business for a second time because of all the state closures? How many state closures do we have? We're over 20. I should have that number, Lance. Do you know? Or Katie?
I'm not totally sure. Katie might know better than I do, but a huge step in Arkansas. We have a highly conservative Republican governor, and he just issued a mask mandate starting Monday at any indoor or outdoor facility.
Yeah, I haven't heard either quite exactly how many states. I know California is kind of closing down again, and I'm up in LA County, and LA County is one of, I think, 3 or 4 counties that did a pretty hard shutdown. They're closing down indoor operations for almost everything out here, except for grocery stores and essential businesses for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, this is closure 2.0. And of course, now the new things, and we have the mask Nazis who yell at everyone if they don't have a mask on. So we're not quite dog days of August yet, Lance, but I predict we will have a nasty dog days of August this summer.
Yeah, Bob, I'm evaluating my retirement portfolio to see if I need to do some rebalancing right now because PPP funding has pretty much been spent for a bulk of it. In addition to that, the $600, what I call juice money on unemployment from the Fed ends at the end of this month. And Katie, you need to call our congressional representatives because we need something new to keep this economy going.
Yeah, well, it's
we need people.
Yeah, no, it's we've come this far. Obviously,
they'll do something.
There's a lot of people who's working on this. Hey, how are your franchises performing? Strong, fair, poor, doors are closed.
Right now, Bob, I would say mine are absolutely doing fine.
Well, yeah, because of the 6 month.
Yeah, they're doing fine right now.
Well, that's
they've got.
I'm going to say strong 25%, fair 56%, poor 13%. I'm sort of that number of failure over 5% is not shocking, but it's concerning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bob, most of the franchises that have SBA loans, which that's what our participants in the Coleman Report do, they're living with CARES Act payments and PPP funds. So, the question is when that runs out, how strong will they perform after that?
And finally, we have a theme today where we will try to do themes from time to time. This one's entertainment industry, near and dear to all of our hearts. Have you had anybody go out of business here? I'm talking, what industries are we talking about, Katie? We're talking movie theaters. What else?
Movie theaters, event venues, arcades, just about anything where you would be spending some leisure time, except for maybe outdoor things.
12% say yes, and 51% have said so far they are okay. Congratulations. We know a lot of these people. Congratulations to their new positions. Congratulations, Bill. Who are the people you know on that list, Lance?
Really the only one that I know, well, I know, of course, Bill Manger, but Loretta Green as well. The others are new names to me, and that's to be expected because I've been away from the SBA, Bob, now pretty close to 8 years.
Well,
so,
yeah. Okay.
But Bill Manger, great guy. Congratulations, Bill.
Yeah,
very proud.
Bill's a straight up guy. He's done a great job. that the lenders are fortunate to have him, and congratulations to everyone on that list. Hey, talk about some of the bankruptcies in entertainment, Katie.
So we kind of were starting to talk about the list of businesses that have gone under or are not doing well. There was a survey conducted by the University of Houston's Hobby School of Public Affairs that showed that 90% of Austin's live music venues could permanently close by the end of October. And I mean, everybody on this call probably knows Austin's well known for their live music, so that's really sad for them.
Right.
And you know, Barracuda event venue has already closed, and I found several others that were listed as well. The National Independent Venue Association also did a survey of about 2,000 members from all over the country, and they found that 90% of the organization's members said they will also permanently close in a few months without additional funding.
What a
And
horrible
that's places, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said it's a horrible stat. Go ahead.
Right. So it's those are places, they're not just music venues, they're also places that hold plays or events. If you had a private event, some of them do private events as well. Theaters are also not doing that great. Chicago's Mercury Theater, Capitol Cinemas in Princeton, and several others have already either closed or been at serious risk of closure, especially these independent theaters. Well, some of them are doing quite well. Others are still really struggling because the larger theaters are able to do online options. The local theater here does an online option where you turn in a ticket and you can watch an older movie that hasn't been released or that has been released for a while. But those independent theaters don't have the resources to do that. Also, arcades, a lot of those have had to permanently close, or they're just still closed because we were discussing this before the show, and you have to touch things. It's really hard to to play these games and not touch the products that, you know, so that's a problem. And then also we're looking at indoor soccer, indoor go-karting, golf, mini golf. Those places are also having to close all across the country.
You know, we all had anecdotal stories. My aunt is an old-time bridge player. That's all canceled because of touching the cards. We're in Southern California, and the Rose Parade is you know, a big thing for Southern California, and it's not happening this year. So,
But Bob, one thing I want to focus, you know, the news, there's a lot of negative news. And Bob, you and I are both old enough to have been through multiple significant recessions. There will be a cleansing, but for SBA lenders, when we come out on the other side, there's going to be incredible opportunity because, you know, these event venues, these things that are closing, there'll be new operators that come in and replace that with a new improved concept.
It's not 2008 where we had a credit freeze where we couldn't get credit. Credit is out there. And back in 2008, we talked about a supply and demand issue and that we did not have supply from the lenders. Here, we certainly have the supply of lending, and it's up to the lenders to go out there and get the loans.
Well, and the other thing,
you're right. There's been a lot of negative stories, but I want to also say, buried in those, and I do say buried, there's also been a lot of positive stories about lenders funding PPP loans, and all of those stories do say, hey, how much of jobs they have retained and created. So that's, you know, our point here is we certainly don't want to always focus on the negative, and there are some positive stories coming out of that. A shout out to New Tech. I don't have the stats in front of me, but they did amazing. Obviously, we've talked about Cross River out of New Jersey, Fountainhead, Chris Hearn's company. So those stories are out, they just don't leave. Go ahead, Lance.
The other thing, Bob, is I'm in communication with small business owners every day, and there are segments of the small business community that are doing amazing. Talk to an owner of an outdoor store. They sell things like bicycles and canoes. They're killing it. Talk to a furniture store owner. they're killing. Talk to liquor store owners, a couple of them. They're doing outstanding. Grocery store, I talked to a guy who has a couple of independent grocery stores. He's having the best cash flow, the best revenue in a long time. So there are categories of strength within this that small business lenders can certainly look at and take care of. And so, I mean, there are a lot of industries that are really suffering, but there are industries that are doing well.
And that's why SBA came out with their guidance and should say, hey, lenders, be sure and you analyze the industry that you're lending to. That, the past financials are important, but if you need to make the determination if this is a growth industry or we're going the other way. So it's
another example, Bob, is I have a client in the trucking industry. They're doing incredible right now.
Yeah. And, and that's why we talked about, you would think dentists are doing well. In Southern California, dentists are closed, so they're not doing well. Interesting chart, and I guess this is by asset size. I guess we're not going to be flying, what is that, Latia Airlines. Hertz, obviously, I haven't heard much about them lately, but that's a huge bankruptcy. J.C. Penney. And the Roman Catholic Church of the Archdiocese of New Orleans. I didn't expect that one. And so that's an interesting little show. Obviously, Gold's Gym. There was an interesting stat that said, Katie, again, you're my stats go-to person. What percentage of the people aren't going to go back to a gym after this is all over?
I think it's fluctuated, but last I heard it was around like 70% or so. We're saying that we're uncomfortable with it.
Yeah. So, we're definitely the new normal. Anybody on that list, Lance, that you are shocked at?
There's not really anybody I'm shocked at. Certainly, it tells me some stories about actions that you take. For instance, think about Hertz. The used car market is going to be flooded when that bankruptcy and they start releasing all those cars, and you're going to see used car prices go down. So there's some reactions that will occur as these play out that we need to be aware of.
As opposed to 2008. A blast from the past. Remember, we had Cash for Clunkers where we destroyed all these perfectly good used cars, which inflated prices. So this is everything that we learned in 2008 throw out the window, Lance.
Well, because this is a very different recession than 2008. 2008, 2009, there are certain segments, but the difference is the general public wasn't impacted the way they are this time. So, I mean, and that general public being impacted.
Okay, not only can I lose my job and my house, I may die. So,
I mean, it's
Katie, what's going on with EIDL? What's going on with this?
So I've been following this for a little while, and unfortunately, we just don't have the audience that's really super interested in this, but maybe we have a few people on the call today. The SBA grant program sort of ended a couple days ago, and it's just the grant program. The EIDL program is still in effect. But partially, they're now looking at all of those grants and noticing some odd businesses that received them and in odd places. It doesn't all kind of quite add up, and people are really questioning what happened there. And what they're thinking happened is people were interested in these grants, and so they quickly applied and falsified some information to try to get them with no intent of really wanting to pay off anything, and they just wanted free money.
I would encourage all of you, your marketing people, to sit down. I don't know what Bank of the Ozark is doing. I guess first of all, you changed your name. I should. What is it, Ozark Bank now?
Bank OZK. Bank OZK.
Shows you how far behind I'm. but I would push the marketing on, send out the press releases, get some social medias, definitely send it to your Congress people in terms of how many jobs you've saved in the community. When you talk to members of Congress, they love driving down the main street and they can point out, hey, that person got a PPP loan, and then that's personal to them that they saved those jobs. So I think we can counteract some of this negative publicity with, yeah, there's been some rogue borrowers, but overall, this is the good we've done for the economy. Fraud Friday, what you got, Katie?
So Hubert Ivan Yergrit, who's the owner of Frisbee Trucking, and his controller.
Oh, are you sure you're pronouncing all these names right? Frisbee.
Yeah, you know, I guess it's made up company name. So I mean, it's a real company. It is, but I don't know how to pronounce it properly. I'm guessing here. And his controller, Lisa Bradshaw Robery, they applied for a $210,000 PPP loan to pay their employees. Unfortunately, though, Hubert had already been in formal criminal charges for fraud, and what he was doing before was something with FedEx, where he was trying to take control of their shipment location and things like that. I don't know the full story of that, but I know it did involve FedEx. And that case is still going on and has been going on for several months. And when they applied for their loan, they applied at two places. Both of those places saw that he had this ongoing criminal charges and said no. But finally, Lisa decides to try one more place that she supposedly had a connection with, which possibly is going to get this bank in trouble because I don't know if she convinced them or if they knew, but they ended up actually giving him the money, and they dispersed all of the money, and within 4 days, a little over half of it ended up diverted to Kinsworth Sales, which owns and helps with maintaining their trucks. Leaving only 40% for payroll costs. So not only was he not supposed to get this loan because he had ongoing criminal charges and falsely said no, he didn't, but also he's using these now primarily on the trucks and not on keeping payroll.
Yeah, and I don't have, I mean, I have an issue with it to a minor extent, Lance. I mean, come on, he made the payments. Otherwise, I assume they're going to be repossessed. But the key thing is you can't certify that, no, I'm not under criminal indictment to the government.
Well, I have, you know, what he did paying the past due payment. I'm wondering, you know, the other things probably bring a criminal aspect to it. But the CARES Act did not say you couldn't spend money on other legitimate business expenses. It just said it would not be forgiven. So, I mean, his criminal act is probably the misrepresentations made in the application process. Paying $126K to Kenworth probably is not criminal, but would result in no forgiveness on that particular.
Hey, I want to clarify. Martin asked the question. First of all, do we have an EDIL program right now, Katie, or are we out of money and it's closed down?
We do have an EDIL program. Sorry if I didn't clarify that. It's just the advanced program where you get essentially a grant from the government. That has ended.
Lance, can we use an EIDL loan to pay off a 7A loan that was initially used for working capital?
Typically, the answer to that should be no. Idle loans are supposed to be used for working capital purposes, which would be operational expenses, which kind of in a roundabout way, loan payments would be considered part of that. But and I could be wrong. Those of you out here more familiar, I did not spend a ton of time trying to understand the idle loans, because we were immersed in PPP.
Oh, I like the acronym, IDLE. I haven't heard that before, IDLE loans.
But I did not spend as much time as needed to. I did have a lot of conversations with borrowers about it. But initially, when I read through the information, it's supposed to be for working capital expenses. I did have a friend that got one, and we walked through it, and we kind of talked about what he could and couldn't spend the money on. And he actually was wanting to reduce a non-SBA debt. And I told him that was not the intent of the program, that he should use it for operational expenses and use the money you normally would use on operational expenses to reduce that loan.
Raman asked, is there a source for updates? The answer is, yeah, that's what we do here. And I suspect with Congress getting back in session, when are they back in session, Katie? Are they back now?
They're supposed to be back on Monday.
Okay. And Lance and I have been very poor in predicting maybe we need to rope Katie into this. But we have the second round of all these state closures. I see another bipartisan support for some sort of additional pandemic stimulus, Lance.
Well, Bob, however quickly Congress acts will determine whether I rebalance my retirement portfolio or not. So they need to get on the ball.
Real quick question from Michael. Lance, the CFR has a provision allowing lenders to sell all or part of their PPP loans back to SBA prior to client forgiveness. I don't know what to do. Anybody at SBA we could talk to, the answer is we don't know. Correct?
I would call your district director in the area you're in. All the district directors are doing ongoing updates on the PPP loan. So call your district director in your area to get some guidance there.
Two quick more comments. One, Wendy asked the question, do you know if a lender is required to report the PPP loans to the credit bureaus like we do on our 7A and 504 loans?
That's a really interesting question, Wendy, and I think I replied by email. My assumption is all 7A loans are supposed to be reported to the credit bureau. The PPP loan technically is a 7A loan. So that would tell me yes, but there was zero guidance in the CARES Act, zero guidance from SBA that I saw about credit reporting. That's another one that I'd love to see somebody launch a question to 7A questions to find out the answer, because again, there wasn't any guidance that I've seen that says we're supposed to, but we are supposed to do credit reporting on the 7A loans, and technically the PPP loan is a 7A loan.
Apologize for running over, but these are great questions. Jared was saying, hey, it's the borrower who committed fraud. If the company closes, will we be paid for the guarantee, and what liability does the lender have?
According to the PPP loan, you've got 100% guarantee, and the bank is not liable for the borrower's actions. So the answer is you should be paid on the PPP loan.
Finally, Raman asks, folks are asking if we can use the PPP loan to pay off EIDL loan. And he says his answer is no. Please confirm if his information is correct.
Typically, you would have included an EIDL loan that you wanted refinanced in your PPP application. The PPP funds are specifically designated for payroll and utilities and interest payments on mortgage obligations related to business.
My comment is, why would you want to do that? We have such a low interest rate as well as a favorable amortization schedule.
I would not. The idle loan has a better amortization. It does not have as low an interest rate, but the repayment requirements on the idle loan, the payments are going to be significantly less on the idle loan versus the PPP if you refinance it in PPP. But if we all go back to the PPP requirements, it does not say you can pay off debt with it. It says you can pay payroll, utilities, and interest expense on mortgage.
What percentage of the loan has to go to payroll, Lance?
60%.
So that means you have 40% to do with what you want. I mean, there's a list, but basically.
Well, no, 40% can be on utilities.
Right.
and mortgage interest on business property.
And rent?
Yeah, I'm sorry, and rent, Bob.
Yeah. So I mean, you have some flexibility. Very good. I want shout out to Vicky. Vicky gave us a very nice note. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for your daily shows. Even on days when you do not have news to report, I get a lot out of your discussions. Vicky, that was very kind of you. Lance is putting together a great webinar on Wednesday, which puts all this stuff into context. More importantly, we're going to be talking about what opportunities lenders have to meet their borrowers' demands. So that's going to be very, very good. And we have a new newsletter that we came out, and it's it's directed to the C-suite and to your board of directors. Hey, with that, thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Everyone have a nice weekend.
Have a great weekend.